You're done inside, but still showing up outside. Every morning you walk into the building performing as someone you're not anymore. Meeting about futures you won't be a part of. Nodding along in agreement, making sure you ask the right questions, pretending to care about outcomes that stopped mattering to you months ago. You're exhausted, but not from the work itself, but all that pretending. This is one of the hardest stretches of a decades-long career, and almost nobody talks about it. I'm Carney. I'm a transition coach, and I work with people who've spent decades building serious careers and are now navigating the end of the very career that defined them. First, a distinction that matters. This isn't burnout. Burnout is exhaustion within an identity that still fits you. You're depleted, but the role still feels like yours. This is different. What we're talking about is completion. The identity itself is finished. You've been that expert long enough. You've led long enough. The developmental work of this chapter is done, and rest isn't going to change that because you're not tired of the circumstances. You're complete with the identity. And here's what makes it brutal. You're complete inside, but the role still requires you to show up outside. You can't just leave tomorrow. There's a timeline, responsibilities, a successor who isn't quite ready, projects that are mid-flight, people that depend on you. So you're living in two identities at once, the one that's finished and the one you're still required to perform. This gap between internal completion and external performance creates specific experiences. And I want to name them because having language for what's happening changes your relationship to it. The first is performance exhaustion. You're not just doing the work, you're performing an engagement you no longer feel. Every meeting requires you to act invested in outcomes that won't matter to you in 6 months. That performance, the faking of investment when you're actually complete, takes more energy than the actual work ever did. Next is relief tangled with terror. You feel relief that a decision is made, but it comes with terror attached. Terror about what's next, about the stretch of months after you exit when the old identity is gone, but the new one hasn't formed yet. Terror about whether you'll matter if you're not producing. Both of these are real. They certainly coexist, but you don't have to choose between them. Next is disorientation without crises. Nothing is objectively wrong. Your life is stable, but you feel unmoored. The ground is shifting even though externally everything looks fine. That's the specific disorientation of liminal space. You're no longer who you were, yet not yet who you're becoming. The landmarks that used to orient you, role, title, professional identity, are all rapidly dissolving. Your nervous system is looking for something to hold on to, and it's finding less and less. Lastly is anticipatory grief. You're grieving while you're still in the building, grieving relationships that won't survive the exit, grieving the identity that gave you structure and proof you matter. And this grief is complicated because you chose this. You wonder if you're allowed to grieve something you decided to end. You are. Choosing an ending doesn't disqualify you from mourning it. What makes this stretch so exhausting isn't any single thing. It's the accumulation. The friction intensifies as you approach the exit. 6 months out, you can still perform with some level of authenticity. There's enough distance to the exit that the dissonance is manageable. 3 months out, it starts to get harder. And 1 month out, you're barely holding it together. Resentment builds if you don't name it. The longer you perform what's complete, the more resentment accumulates toward the job, toward the people who still need you to be who you were, and toward yourself for not leaving sooner. Resentment is corrosive. It poisons the final stretch. And if you carry it out the door with you, it follows you into whatever comes next. The emerging identity has no room to breathe. While you're performing the old identity full time, the new one, the one forming beneath the surface, gets suffocated. The quiet signals get grouted out. The practices you're trying to build get squeezed by the work demands. You're trying to become someone new while still being required to be who you were. And there's no space for both. Here's what most people don't know when they're in this stretch. After you exit, there's a period, typically of 6 to 12 months, where the old identity is gone, but the new one hasn't formed yet. I call it the between. Structure disappears. You wake up with nothing required of you, no calendar telling you who you are, no external validation proving you matter. And for someone who spent decades in structured environments, this is profoundly disorienting. Most people stumble into the between blindsided. They thought the relief of leaving would carry them through. It doesn't work that way. The between isn't a problem you failed to solve. It's a normal, predictable, necessary part of a late career transition. But when you're not prepared for it, when you haven't done the internal work before you exit, it's destabilizing. You feel like you've made a mistake. You wonder if something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. You just didn't know it was coming. And that's why this stretch matters. The time between being done, inside, and walking out outside, this is when you can prepare. This is when you can examine what's complete, sense what's emerging, loosen the worth equals productivity equation that will devastate you if you carry it into the between. So what do you do with this? You name it. You're not broken, you're not failing, you're living in the gap between internal completion and external performance. That's the territory, and it has a name now. Just naming it lets you stop wondering what's wrong with you and start navigating what's actually happening. Stop performing what's complete. Not all at once, you have responsibilities, but start experimenting. Let someone else answer that question. Don't volunteer for the project even though you'd be good at it. Leave at 5 without finishing everything. Notice what happens inside you. Anxiety, guilt, relief. The discomfort reveals how tightly the old identity still grips you. The relief reveals what's ready to let go. Protect what's emerging. The new identity, the one forming beneath the surface, needs space, even 15 minutes a day. A morning practice, a walk without your phone, something that isn't about producing or proving. The emerging identity can't breathe if you're still performing the old one full time. Give it room, even a little bit of room. You're in one of the hardest stretches of your career. Done on the inside, still here outside. But this territory is navigable, and preparation makes the difference between stumbling through it blind and entering what comes next with some steadiness underneath you. You can't skip the between, but you can enter it with your eyes open. I put together a free toolkit called the Conscious Exit Transition Toolkit. It's 5 exercises starting with the completion test. This will help you distinguish whether you're depleted or actually done. It's the first question that matters, and most people haven't asked it clearly. The link is in the description. You're not broken, you're in transition. And transition, when you're prepared for it, is navigable.